Guys. So this presentation is talking about what an activity analysis is. During Module 3, you're going to be looking at how to complete two different activity analysis. One is going to be on a video that we're going to look at, and the next is going to be on an activity that you choose to analyze. So it can be anything. But we're going to go through how to complete an analysis during this presentation, and then you're going to have time to look at another video and answer some questions about some of the concepts that we've already talked about in Module 2. All of this information pertains to the OT Practice Framework, so you might want to get that information out as you're looking at the videos or as we're talking about this information, because I think it will be helpful. So let's get started. So what is an activity analysis? It really is something that OTs use. Other professions use this, but the way we use it is that we look at how activities are executed and what are the steps of the activity. How does a person do performing the steps of the activity? How much time does the individual spend on the activity? Does that make a difference or play a difference in that final outcome? Possibly they get too fatigued because it takes too long to get through there, or maybe they don't have the attention or modulation and they go through it too quickly. These are all things that we look at. How much time and how many resources or how much is consumed, and of what value that the person engages in the occupation or the activity. What is the value to that person of that activity? So this analysis is accomplished through direct observation. So this is how we watch and how we see how the individual performs it. We can also get information from an interview, from a person completing a questionnaire, and in review of an individual's work records, or even a progress report to see how they've actually completed the task. You can see job analysis, performance analysis, and task analysis are kind of all used in interchangeably, if you'd like to say. But we're going to be using the term activity analysis for this class. Okay, so what are activities? What are they? What comes to mind when you think of activities? Where do you perform them? What are the client factors that we use when we're engaged in activity? What are the performance skills that we use? What about the performance patterns we use? And in what context and in what environment are these activities engaged in? So this is where you're going to think back to that OT Practice Framework and all of those components and skills that we talked about in Module 2. We're going to be now solidifying and getting more in depth here for Module 3. Okay, so why are activity analysis so important to OTs? It plays an important role in what we do as a profession. Early on, back in the history, OTs looked at crafts and other therapeutic activities to help a soldier regain the skills needed to go back to war or to get back into life. So what happens is those activities, sorry, my dog is right in front of me. The activities that were done were analyzed to actually see if the components that were being accomplished by the soldiers were meeting the needs of their deficits. And they were graded, meaning that they were made easier or made more difficult, or possibly a position was changed in order to accommodate what that individual needed. So these are all things that we think about with an activity analysis. It really is the foundation of the OT practice. We look at, thinking of that in the OTPF, we're looking at that person's physical functioning, their perceptual functioning, their cognitive function, psychological functioning, and also looking at the social and cultural factors that play a part in how they engage in this activity. Okay, so we're going to think about what are the steps. We're going to look at a video, and the video is about 3 minutes long. We will watch a good portion of it. You might have seen it already. It was actually on social media going around. I laugh at it every single time. And it looks at, so we're going to be looking at how much time it takes, what are the precautions, what are the special considerations, what is the acceptable criteria for completion. So we're going to be looking at the area of occupation, the client factors, performance skills and patterns, context and environment, to determine if each component is required and in what way it was required. And then we're going to give a summary of your interpretation of that. So let's get started.
The good news is State Farm has won 5 J.D. Power Awards in a row for life insurance. The bad news is they're inside your body.
So if you haven't seen this video before, I hope that you laughed as hard as I laugh This cracks me up every single time. So what I'm going to do is I took just the last part of the video and I completed an activity analysis and synthesis. So I'm going to go through this with you. And I just want to say that don't you wish that you could just dance like that little girl did? Because how fun is that? She's just adorable. Okay, so back to this. So this is posted, there's actually a blank copy posted for you on Moodle that you will use to complete your activity analysis and synthesis. Please be sure to make a copy of this instead of writing right on this document. This is a Google Doc, so if you write right on the one that is available to you through Moodle, everybody is going to receive your analysis. So make sure you make a copy of it, save it to your computer, and then upload it to the Moodle page that is listed, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so the name of the activity we're going to just say is girl dancing. Describe the activity. It's a girl, I'm not sure if she was at church or at preschool. It looked like a church setting, but maybe she was in preschool there. It's likely the end of the year ceremony. The child is singing and dancing a rehearsed song with a lead and her peers. The equipments and tools that were used were music and a narrator that basically shared how to perform the activity. She was also on a riser. We could include that as well. So she was on a riser, standing on a riser. I'll put it down. Okay, so the major steps. So again, I'm just looking at to complete all the steps in sequence in approximately 18 seconds. I used only the last 18 seconds or 20 seconds of the video to complete this analysis. So these are the steps, just like the song said: thumbs up, elbows back, feet apart, knees together, butt up, tongue out, eyes closed, and turn around. So each step took just a few seconds, and it ultimately led up to 18 seconds to complete the whole routine. I looked at some of the precautions. Standing on the riser could be a precaution. If she got too close to the end, she has a risk of falling over or falling off. She has a risk of bumping into other people. With her eyes closed, she could fall from the riser. When turning around, she could also fall from the riser or bump into the wall or peers. So those are some precautions that I thought of. Some special consideration. This child likely practiced this. There was a strong need to follow directions and not be distracted by an audience. The acceptable criteria for this completion was to complete the steps in order. Okay, pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to just go through it so you have an understanding of what we're looking for, or what I'm looking for. So now I talked about the areas of occupation that were addressed. So I talked about the component as well as the type of occupation. So I looked under ADLs. She looked at functional mobility. It was required to move on the riser without falling off. In the area of education, it looked at formal education. This was a song that was taught to her that they probably rehearsed in an educational environment. So it was a learning process. And then the social participation was that she was with peers. Didn't really show friendship per se, but she certainly was with peers or classmates. The components that I talked about were, again, required for moving on riser without falling and for following directions. And the synthesis is now me taking my interpretation or perception of what happened and putting it into my own words. So I said girl had practiced and was able to follow directions and execute steps in order to complete the required tasks with her classmates and peers. That's my synthesis. In the area of client factors, under values, I wrote down that there was a commitment to family and peers. So there was that strong value that she wanted to do well. She was clearly looking at the audience, at her mother or loved one, and making eye contact. She wanted for them to be proud. She valued them being in that audience. Girl showed values in her desire to do what was asked of her and to do it as the peers performed. So that's my synthesis. In the area of body functions, I broke it down a little bit more. As you see, there's several categories here. And this is what I'm going to ask for you to do. So you're going to I looked at specific mental functions, and then these were the ones that I felt fit those last 18 seconds of the activity: her attention, her memory, sequencing complex movements, experiences of time and self. When you look at global mental functions, it looked at temperament and personality. Sensory functions, it looked at visual, hearing, vestibular, and proprioception. Joint mobility and stability, looked at maintaining stability of the joints while the body was in movement, or in motion, I should say. That's probably better. Let's change that word, motion. I looked at muscle function, so it looks at her muscle tone, power, and endurance. Movement function looks at the control of the voluntary movements. Everything that she did was voluntary. She was in control of those movements. And then looking at the final section, the cardiovascular, hematological, immunological, and respiratory functions, I wrote down the one area that I thought might be contributory would be additional functions of the sensations of the cardiovascular and respiratory system. She had to work on her breathing. And she also had to have enough endurance and breath in order to sustain and keep performing those tasks that she did. My synthesis of this was that the girl demonstrated the ability to organize herself cognitively and physically in order to complete all sequential steps in the dance while showing her unique personality and engaging the audience. I hope that makes sense to you. Now, looking at the body structures, these are structures related to movement. And basically what I had talked about, or that's the one area, in that the girl was able to complete all movement in the correct order that was required, and she repeated it throughout the task without losing her balance or coordination. Okay, now we're into the performance skills. So looking at her motor skills, I've listed that she was looking at stability, positioning, bending, coordinating, flowing, pacing, and enduring. It was required for the dance itself. The synthesis of this was that she completed all specific steps repeatedly in order to complete the dance. In the area of process skills, remember these are the thought skills: pacing, attending, initiating, continuing, sequencing, and terminating, meaning that she stopped when she was supposed to stop. She went from one sequence to the next sequence without losing tempo, rhythm, or her spot. Therefore, she used it to follow the narration and execute the motor steps, and she showed the ability to keep rhythm and tempo, attend to narration, and stop movement when the dance sequence was completed. In the area of social interaction skills, she looked, she placed herself, and she certainly expressed emotions. She did that and required for dance. And then my synthesis was that she visually regarded the audience, was aware of her surroundings with her peers, paced herself, and certainly showed her unique personality when engaged in the dance. The next area is performance patterns. So I selected, or I started for the area of person. In the area of routine. It was required because she was able to follow the sequence of the steps involved in the dance, and then the synthesis was that she completed the routine of the dance. When looking in the group or population, meaning that she was with others, I also looked at routine. She followed the social customs for the gathering, meaning that she was engaged in the process. She was looking at the audience. She was doing what her peers were supposed to be doing, and they were doing it all together. The girl followed along and participated in the routine that was appropriate for the end of the year presentation at school or church. The last area is context and environment. So looking at those areas that were listed under context, I selected cultural as being the most appropriate, required for the group setting. And again, this is at the end of the year school or recital. Looking at the environment, this was a social environment, again required for group participation as the classmates engaged in a recital in the common area. So I hope that this makes sense to you. I'm going to stop the video here just to see if you have any questions. Please ask me questions here and I will certainly respond. Okay. Now let's look at a couple other activities. Please complete the questions on the Edpuzzle for each of the videos. So I'm going to have you look at the dance troupe video, and then I'm also going to have you look at the activity analysis of making a cup of tea. I'm going to let you do this on your own. Actually, I'll look at it with you.
Don't think about it, just move your body. Listen to the music, sing oh and oh. Just move those left feet, go ahead, get crazy. Anyone can do it, sing oh and oh. Show the world you got that fire. Feel the rhythm getting louder. Show the room what you can do, prove to them you got the moves. Hey. I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. Better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. And we can do this together. I bet you feel better when you're dancing. Yeah, yeah. When you finally let go, you say that solo. Cause you listen to that music, sing it oh, oh. Cause you're confident, babe. You make your hips sway. We knew that you could do it, sing oh, oh. Show the world you got that fire, baby. Feel the rhythm getting louder. Show the room what you can do. Move to them, you got the moves. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm
Okay, so that's a dance troupe. And then the next one is making a cup of tea. Okay, so now that we've looked at those two videos, I'm going to ask you to complete a couple of questions on each of these. Okay, now it's time for the activity analysis. You're going to, I've actually posted the one video of the girl dancing, so if you'd like to look at that again, you can certainly use that. And here is the activity analysis Google Doc template. So you can use this template. It's also posted on the Moodle page to complete 2 activity analysis. The first one is going to be on the video that's posted under Module 3, and it's of some kids that are playing on a playground and swinging. You can select which individual that you would like to do the analysis on, and you'll just have to do it for a short period of time, so you don't have to think you're analyzing everything in the video. Just select one child to do an analysis on. So let me know if you have any questions, but that's it for now, guys. Thanks.